Hi, my name is Amy Looper with Relativity Sales, and I'm so excited that you joined us here at Skyrocket, your startup. This series is really meant to give you information on how to protect your investments, minimize your risk, and make yourselves more attractive to investors. So today, I want to talk about sales enablement because it is a term they're probably seeing everywhere. A lot of companies are hiring for sales enablement roles. They're putting a lot of, you'll see some of the larger companies put a lot of effort into building out teams for sales enablement. And you might be wondering why. Why do we need to enable sales? Well, when we're looking at connecting with customers that are changing so quickly in the technology industry, for an example, enabling your sales team to perform their highest really just protects your own investment. Previously a lot of companies would just hire, a bunch of salespeople. They get a lot of VC money, and then they pour a bunch of money into recruiting salespeople and fill a bunch of seats. And then they would kind of leave it up to the sales managers or the sales, individuals on the ground to really figure out how to sell. They might put them through like a 1-hour class or something, or put them through a quick onboarding, but then they just let them go and see if they perform. And if they don't perform, then what would happen is that you'd have to fire a bunch of people, rehire a bunch of people, and put them through the same process. And it was just a cycle of insanity. So over the last several, years, I think companies have noticed, hey, maybe it's not just a salesperson that is responsible for kind of understanding value, but maybe if we taught them and we, really had strategic processes that were, very repeatable and proven, that we could up-level the performance of our sales team and therefore reduce the amount of churn that we had in our sales organizations. And this can be also true for a very small organization. If you're a founding member of a startup, maybe you yourself are still holding the reins on sales because you're still proving out your product market fit, or maybe you just haven't hired your first sales team, whatever the case is, this still applies to you because it's very critical, of course, at that startup point to really maximize every dollar within your organization, right? You want to maximize every bit of revenue that you can and leverage that for growth. So today I want to talk about transitioning out of founder-based selling, because you can do it a number of ways. I do think that there's some good best practices to kind of go about it so that you don't churn through a rep. And one sales rep that doesn't work out in an early stage company can easily cost you over $100,000. The reason being is because, of course, if you're hiring someone, they've got benefits, they've got salary expectations. Not everyone's going to work for a startup for commission only or equity only. The really good salespeople are going to require a compensation package. So you don't want to really hire them until you're really ready for that, right? So as a founder, my suggestion to all my clients, and the first question I ask is, have you sold to at least 10 customers yourself as a founder? Have you proven your product market fit? And have you proven, the methodologies or the routes to getting those leads consistently? Because if you haven't proven that as a founding member, then there might be some work there to do to just make sure you have, the right product market fit. You're selling to the ideal customer. You yourself understand the value that your company brings to that ideal customer. And then, then you can go and teach a sales team that, right? Or you can bring on a fractional sales leader like myself and say, hey, I need you guys to really, take this and run with it and really maximize our ability to serve this particular client persona, right? So that's really step number one. And then we go into really creating a winning sales strategy. So as a founder who has gotten the first 10 customers, maybe there's a group of you who have done that, then start to document how you got those customers. Where did they come from? Were they all referrals from your own network? Were they incoming leads from a campaign? What's the referral source that made that happen, so that you can start to document what's working and what's not. There's going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't work, or that hasn't proved itself out yet, and that is totally fine. But then we can start to think about, okay, this is the path. Now let's think about that and flip our thought pattern on not what works for us internally, but what's resonating with our client. And this is where we can start to get into a little mini journey map. Customer journey mapping is something you may have heard of. Large companies do it all the time, and they spend months doing it because they have very large organizations, and they may have different departments that are kind of operating in silos, and therefore they need to really kind of bring those groups together. And customer journey mapping is a wonderful way to break down silos within an organization and really focus everybody back on the customer and create this customer-centric environment, right? Very customer-centric, sales-focused environment. But when you're doing a smaller engagement with a early stage company, you're going to obviously have a smaller engagement, but you're going to start to look at how are you engaging with the customer from as early on as your website and some of the touch points in that cycle. So how do they find you? How are they engaging with your websites? Is it chat something that's helpful with them to engage? What is that going to look like from a sales standpoint as well? So that way you can start to see what is your customer, what's resonating with your customer, how do they want to engage with your company? At what point do you think you need to maybe engage the customer and the sales team? At what point do you think that then you need to really transition sales, customer success? Maybe you have product support depending on what your model is. But there are different, pre-sales and post-sales touch points that will be a part of that journey. And we can certainly go into that in a later time in more detail. Once you understand that, then you'll be able to really have a clear vision as a leader into how you want to hire over the next 1 to 2 years. That way you're not just experimenting on the fly. And experimenting on the fly, we all have to do. But it's certainly better to be proactive versus reactive, right? So it just helps you kind of line up in many different ways how you want to engage in sales. You may want to start out with more of a business development rep or a BDR, right? Someone that's going to really respond to marketing, maybe do outbound prospecting for you, and continue to prove a product market fit. You may need someone to do that for you for a little bit, and that's totally fine. And then you as the founding, team may take those leads because you are the most knowledgeable about your solution at that point, and then work them to a close. You may be a little bit further on and be able to, hire someone that's very seasoned, a very seasoned rep, because you've really proven out that product market fit. And you said, hey, this is our repeatable process. We've documented this. We have this thorough discovery process. We have, taken our demo to close ratio. We know what that metric is. We know how long our sales process is on average. And we know that for certain, this is our ideal customer. Go get it, right? And then you can hire that sales veteran to be able to just rinse and repeat and respond, very consultatively with your client base. And you have a high level of trust with that person. And, they really start to become a sales leader within your organization. That's certainly the route that I think we all really, really desire and want. And that brings me to understanding your value-based messaging. Part of that moment in time when you're kind of working on that market to sales bridge is, sales enablement comes to play there. Sales enablement bridges marketing and sales together. And it helps to use your customer's voice. It helps to understand, why did your customer buy from you? And why would they buy again from you, right? We want to take them on this journey where they just don't buy from you once, but they turn to you as an advisor or a solution that they just can't live without for a very long time, for at least a year, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe longer. I worked for a company once and we sold agreements for 7-year terms because it was a very complex solution that could serve our client for a very long time. So it really depends on where you're at, but using a group of, your top 3 to 5 customers. Bring them into, one of your meetings, and bring them into a meeting where you've got somebody in product, post sales support. You've got your leadership team, somebody from the executive team. You've got somebody that is responsible for sales and marketing. And make sure that everyone in the organization hears directly from your customer why they bought from you, because this can be integrated throughout your whole organization. And it starts to become this culture that is value driven. And it starts to become, you start to understand, oh yeah, no, this is why we serve these people. And you start to talk about, how are we solving our customers' problems? Instead of going straight to a demo, or instead of going straight to a proof of concept of your technology, to look at technical aspects and features and benefits. We don't want to go there, right? We want to go there when we need to. And there will be points in the process where you need to go there and you need to talk specifics on tech, and we get that. But you want to lead with value, because it's all about what kind of value, what kind of outcome are you producing for your client, right? So you have to know those things in order to be able to support your sales team. No longer are the days where you can just hire sales, throw them to the wolves, give them a Yellow Pages book, and say, go get them, right? So the top things I would suggest as tools for your onboarding program is to make sure that you've documented a sales playbook, and it says, hey, from A to Z, this is how I've gotten my first 10 sales. And that can be in a Word doc. It can be, there's software programs out there that create sales playbooks. There's a couple of tools that we use here at Relativity for that. Or it could be, you could do a video series if you're a video person, and just document, this is why our customers buy from us, and translate all of that into value-based messaging. And you can really start to educate anyone that you bring onto your company that is in a client-facing role, and even technical people that might not be in a client-facing role. But you can start to create this culture that is very customer-centric, value-based messaging. When you think about your KPIs and things that you want to measure your salespeople on, that is also very important, so you can, obviously push them to the performance that you want to see. And only you as a founder can really understand, what you need from the business. If you're a SaaS business, obviously, your demo to close time is an important metric initially when you're thinking about, how much time is it going to be to really close a sale. If you're, a different kind of a service-based company or technology company, you'll have different metrics, right? But you really want to pay attention to, are we selling to customers that are long-term? Can we serve these customers for a year or longer? Because it's going to take that long to understand, what your churn ratio is, your lifetime value of a customer, things like that. So those are all really important. Part of the series that you'll have, or part of the bonus rather, you'll have access to by attending Skyrocket Your Startup, is my 4-step revenue process, and we go through a lot of these things. In the 4-step revenue growth process, we go through a series of weekly sessions. Part of that session is, the first one is actually mindset. It's all about how to get your head in the game of sales, how to really leverage your mindset when prospecting to avoid your burnout, and really how to leverage active and empathetic listening. That is a big one that even sales veterans have to work on, because it's a grind when you're first starting out to building a pipeline, right? And sometimes you just get kind of worn out from that process. So leveraging mindset and really getting into being present for your discovery calls is huge. And we also teach about time blocking. And time blocking is a really, important tool set to be able to use as well. Boosting your confidence and just your, eliminating any self-doubt that you might have when selling a startup solution is so important to improve your pipeline, because you can really get caught up into that, right? You can get caught up into making assumptions on a buyer. You can get caught up into thinking that you're not as good as a competitor that maybe has been around for 10 years versus, your own company who's maybe you've been around for 2 years. There's a lot of things there that we break through. As we move through into session 2, we talk about the value-based messaging. And this is where, people really book meetings with people that they see clear value in, right? They don't want to just book a meeting to book a meeting. We're all really tired of Zoom meetings. So during this phase, we really make sure that we take a second look, or maybe a third or fourth, at your go-to-market messaging and how your value is being perceived to what your customers need. And then in the third phase, we talk about sales operations and metrics. You've got to have that in place. It's really important to have that in place before you hire your team, or at least, really in process while you're maybe bringing on the first hire, because you want it to be repeatable. You want it to, be as smooth as possible as you bring on new employees. You want them to have a good experience, and you also want to make sure that you're getting the right metrics, right? So we review things like completion metric forecasting. That's a very detailed way of forecasting, and engaging with your clients as well. Making sure that when you are working with clients, that your whole team is driving that customer experience that your company really deserves and desires, to drive long-term customer retention, revenue. And then we talk about account planning, how to really effectively look at an account that may be strategic so that you can solve problems. It's not always cut and dry, right? On being a solution for every customer. Sometimes you need to dig a little bit for the right customer pain. Sometimes you need to talk to just the right, people. And when you start to sell into, medium to large businesses, you need to peel the onion layers back a little bit. So that's really important to go through account planning. And you'll get these free toolkits as well. Then the fourth session is going through your sales playbook. So hopefully you've documented one as a founder. We can take a look at it. If you haven't, then we can certainly talk about how to create your first call track. If you haven't been using call tracks as a founder, not a problem. It's not that we want our salespeople to be super scripted. That is not my approach at all. But we definitely want to make sure that everybody hits on a key set of value-based messaging and key components, so that you're qualifying every particular lead in the right way, right? And qualifying them fully. So we really use the solution selling framework for a lot of this. We get into a little bit of the challenger sale. Challenger is a great methodology for complex selling. And it really, I think it speaks to how buyers are today, right? Buyers today complete over 57% of their purchase process before they even reach out to a vendor. So even if you've built your company on referral-based sales, more than likely your customer or buddy that reached out to you to do business with you had been doing research up until that point, right? So we need to be really prepared and make sure our salespeople are very prepared. And when they are, then they perform just wonderfully, and you've protected your investment. So I hope today this gives you a few tips on how you can go about, transitioning from founder-based selling to leading your first sales team. At Relativity Sales, I specialize in helping founders get to that point and also coach sales teams as you need to grow and scale. Oftentimes the founders and leaders want to get back into focusing on the business and not in the business, and in which case we help out in those cases. So take a look at the bonus items below and reach out with any questions after this session. I appreciate your time today.